So I previously made a video titled, "Will expensive sim racing wheels make you faster?" And the answer was yes, kind of, but really it's all about the pedals. So in today's video, we're gonna go through 3 different sets of pedals from 3 different price points, and we're gonna see whether expensive sim racing pedals actually make you faster. In the cheap and cheerful corner, we have the Logitech G920 and G29 pedals, which cost me about 200 Australian dollars for a wheel, a shifter, and the set of pedals, which is great value. Now, this is a potentiometer type pedal, meaning that the kind of sensor it has works through pedal travel, meaning that if you push this brake pedal down 50%, you'll get 50% braking force in the game. Now, these things are pretty cheap, they're pretty light. I like the metal finish here. It looks pretty smart, but compared to all the other stuff that we have on display today, it's pretty much a toy in comparison. But it's cheap and cheerful, it gets you going, and as I said, I use this for years. On to the next one. The Fanatec V3 pedals are actually the pedals that I've been using for a few years now, and these ones cost $570 brand new. Now that's with the brake performance kit, which is essentially essential to make this thing feel like it should do out of the box. Now these pedals are a load cell set of pedals, meaning that you need to put a certain amount of force for the sensor to then translate that into braking in the game. The thinking behind this is that it creates more consistency because it relies on muscle memory and is more realistic and akin to what real life racing drivers do. Now the cool thing is about these pedals is that they have rumble motors behind the gas pedal and the brake pedal, which gives you a bit of force feedback or kind of tactical feedback from the pedals from what's happening in the game. Now these pedals do have a little bit of adjustment in them in that you can change the amount of preload in the braking pedal. Now this pedal uses elastomers for its braking feel. Essentially these are little rubber inserts that go into the brake pedal and they squish down and give you a certain amount of resistance when you're braking with them. I like the way they look. I think they're finished in a really nice color and they look really sporty. It's definitely a step up from the Logitech entry-level pedals. Now let's look at the VRS. Last but certainly not least is these VRS VRS Force Pro pedals, which I've recently picked up for 770 Australian dollars. I didn't get a clutch pedal, which is an extra $250, which if you did would take you over $1,000. These are by far the most expensive pedal set, and they are ultimately some of the best pedals that you can get on the market. Now the difference between these pedals and lots of other pedals is the adjustments you can get. You can change the angle of the pedal face, the length of the actual brake pedal. You can change the springs in the pedal, and yes, this uses springs and not elastomers. The thinking behind this is that it gives you more consistency and feels more like a real brake pedal. The blue spring gives you 65 kilos of load cell force and the red spring gives you 140 kilos. I've been doing my leg presses in the gym, so I think 140 kilos should be no problem. And these things look absolutely ridiculous, but will they be better, more consistent, and importantly faster than the other 2 sets of pedals? To put the pedals to the ultimate test, I took an F3 car around Brands Hatch in iRacing, a track that's notoriously tricky that requires good pedal control, and I did 10 laps in each of the pedals and I tried to find out which was the fastest and which was the most consistent. Now when I first started using the Logitech pedals, the first thing I noticed coming from my load cell V3s was the lack of pressure on the brake pedal, which made it quite hard to modulate my braking force. And for the first couple of laps led to a lot of scary locking up as I tried to work out how much pressure I could get away with. Now obviously the difference there is that word pressure, because actually it isn't about pressure, it was about distance, which made it feel a lot more tricky to be consistent. Now the way you brake with Logitech pedals is far more about using your ankle rather than using your leg, because it's easier to be accurate that way when it's all about the pedal travel. Now the throttle was similarly light and short and made managing the power on exit rather tricky, but of course there are some people who are blisteringly fast with Logitechs and they've practiced a lot, but compared to my experience of using load cell pedals, it just felt easier to be more consistent with a load cell brake pedal over a potentiometer. Ultimately I still managed to string together a number of good laps and I came away with a fastest time of 1 minute and 19.64 seconds. Using the Fanatec V3s, I will admit I'm actually used to them because they were my pedals for the last couple of years and it was easier for me to drive with these things because of the load cell. Difference being that I was able to build a muscle memory even quickly after using these of working out how much force you could use to avoid locking up and actually get the braking performance that you needed. Using these pedals I found it a bit easier to be able to trail brake, especially meaning that you can get a little bit of rotation just off the apex and it just felt a little bit nicer. Fanatec pedals gave me an injection of finesse that led me to a lap time of 1 minute and 18.996 seconds. Now for the VRS pedal. Let me tell you, the difference was astonishing. So first of all, the brake pedal has so much more feel than the Fanatec V3s. It's really hard to put in words. The way they've engineered this thing together just gives you so much feeling. And the trail braking, oh, the trail braking was so much nicer. And I thought that a fastest time, if it did come, would happen a lot later, but it happened within the first 4 laps, resulting in a lap time of 1 minute 18 and 830 seconds. And ultimately, these were the most consistent.
The pros of the Logitech is that they're very cheap, they are also good for beginners, but the cons are that it's not a load cell and it's not very realistic. Now the Fanatec's were awesome because they have a bit of adjustability, they've got a load cell, and those vibration motors felt pretty good. The cons are it doesn't come with the performance brake kit, and sometimes it can be a bit hard to get it into a position that's actually quite comfortable to use. Pros of the VRS DFP pedals is that the pedal feel was absolutely amazing, and that was with the brake and the throttle. It felt really good, and it felt like it gave me a bit more control even over the Fanatec pedals. It was smoother, it was a bit more resistant, and I can't really put my finger on how it felt, but it just felt better. Now the quality of the finish was extremely high. It felt like something you'd find in an actual race car. The real con of these pedals is that the price might be quite prohibitive for many people, and if you're planning on getting these things, you're going to need a rig that is completely solid due to the 140 kilo force required on the load cell.
To conclude, the VRS pedals were the fastest and they were also the most consistent, but does that mean you should go out and buy yourself a set of VRS pedals to be fast? No! And as I said before, some people are blisteringly fast with these things, so don't knock them. But ultimately, it's about a hobby, it's about enjoyment, and if you've got the means, and these pedals are awesome, but don't expect to become the next fastest sim racer just because you've got a set of really nice pedals. Now, if you enjoyed this video, you might enjoy a video where I sat in a McLaren 720S with a VR headset on, playing Assetto Corsa in a McLaren 720S while in a McLaren 720S. It'll make sense if you watch it. Anyway, see you next time.